This episode, we go over Social Security benefits with Todd and Cindy and Mario. Luckily for me, I'm not really close to that age yet, but I have a little bit of experience because my mom was going through some of the survivor stuff, so it was kind of cool learning a little bit more because I still really don't know much about it. Having Todd kind of go over the ages, when you can get it, the percentages, and that kind of stuff was really interesting to me. So I think anybody that's getting close to that or getting close to the Social Security age, when you need to decide whether you're going to do it, I think this episode will be really beneficial. So I hope you enjoy it.
All right, so welcome to another edition of Cedar Harvest by Maximize Asset Protection. I am super excited, as usual, to have another conversation with all four of us. This is going to be great. We have co-host Officer Ty here today, co-host Cindy Starkey, our Trust and Wills attorney, and then our glorified certified financial fiduciary, Todd DeBerry, as a guest on today. And we are talking about the terrible subject called Social Security that we are also terribly confused about. And thank God we have guys like Todd in our life to help decipher the chaos, right? You know, I assume you kind of be probably a little, what the hell's going on with Social Security in your life?
Well, not until before we started talking because Todd, I'm sure Todd will cover it, but from what I remember, I was told when I was hired, maybe different than what just changed. So be interested to hear what he has to say.
Well, I'm excited to be here, guys, because I am getting ready to turn 62 and a half. So I have to make a decision whether to file for retirement early or whether to delay it. And that's why I wanted to hear from Todd what I should do. As a former assistant attorney general, I am already collecting a small pension, but Social Security is the next piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And then I'm just the self-employed schlep out there who's been funding here and there. And so I'm really curious too, when I turn 62 and a half, is that something I should consider? You know, we all hear these horror stories. Social Security is not going to last. It's going to go away. And it's kind of funny, Todd. I really hear a lot of different things out there. Like you should pull early and invest it. And then I hear other people say, wait till you're 70. So it sounds like there's a lot of different options and some conversations that you and I have had just privately. I had no idea how complex the situations can become for people. So really looking forward to having you give us a 30,000 foot overview of Social Security and then future episode deep diving into some more specific case studies. But on that note, my man, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. It's great to be with Cindy again. We've been working together for a number of years. Hard to believe you're at retirement age, Cindy, but congratulations. And Officer Ty, and you and I have talked for a while now, and you're quite a while away from Social Security, but certainly a good thing to understand how it may affect you, how it may affect your pension. But really, my goal or the time today that we have together is introducing more of uh, a concept called Social Security optimization, versus just retirement income planning. Many clients have written financial plans, but what we're talking about today are written retirement income plans. So to be clear, financial plans are designed to take you to retirement, whereas retirement income plans are meant to take you through retirement. So specifically today, focusing on how Social Security benefits at different times may profoundly impact your retirement plan and your experience that you're going to have over the next 20, 30 years. People are living a lot longer today, which is why most of my clients, they don't tell me that they're worried about dying early. They say they're worried about outliving their money. And that's this quote here: the fear of dying has been replaced by the fear of living too long. And I just think that's, a concept that's pretty common today. And if we want to just get right into it, let me just point one thing out here for you. And I congratulated Cindy here, and but let me explain the inner workings of Social Security and how these strategies can be effective. And first of all, you have to understand that once you retire and begin receiving benefits from the OASDI, or the Old Age Survivor and Disability Insurance Program, yep, you guessed it, the plan says old age. Congratulations. You're officially about to begin being rewarded because you're considered old.
Thank you.
How's that feel?
Really appreciate that.
That is a nice,
Uh,
nice way to say that.
yeah. So, yeah, I just want people to understand, it's not the SSA always that you're dealing with. But basically, to be fully insured means that as an individual, you've worked and paid into and earned enough credits, the required 40 credits, which takes roughly about 10 years of employment.
Do you know if you qualify? Like if you've earned those credits?
Yep. So the Social Security Administration will tell you. You can log on to the Social Security Administration. You can get your earnings estimates. You can get some projected benefits, and it's very easy to log on to SSA.gov and set up your profile and get those answers to those questions.
Is that where is it SSA.gov? Is that what I
Yeah.
got to say? Okay. Yeah, I've been in there. I've always on there about 5 years ago, but I haven't checked since.
Yeah, they used to mail those little cards. Do you remember
Mm-hmm.
projections? If you're old enough to remember that, they don't do that anymore. So you do have to go online and check it online. And there's some great tools to do some projections, and I'll get into that and kind of show you some examples of how that works.
They just told me I'm being deported. You don't get anything. You're out of here.
Todd, before I was with the Attorney General's office, I ran my own law firm. So I don't feel like I paid into Social Security because I didn't have a W-2 job, but did I pay into Social Security? And do you know if I get credit for those years that that I owned my own firm?
So, I mean, that's a great question. If you did not pay into Social Security, you would be eliminated from that benefit. However, Cindy, we've talked about the fact that you were married to somebody who did pay into Social Security throughout his career.
That's who that came out of that marriage beside my kids.
Yeah, and even if you've gotten divorced because you were married for the time of that you were, you're entitled to those benefits, and I'll get into the details of how those work. So,
And that's a good question about it too, because I know we pay a self-employment tax as well.
Right.
And so depending on how you're filing, there might be I don't know if Social Security's in there as well, but I know there's a Social Security. I mean, there's a self-employment tax that many people pay as well. So I wonder part of that is Social Security. That's a good question.
that's right.
I'm definitely paying that self-employment tax. Or I
Uh,
was.
I would think that's probably what that's encompassing is my guess.
Just
Oh, but we'll check. That's
Yeah.
a great question.
That's a great question. Of course, I have to pause and have my financial advisor hat on here and say you should always consult your tax professional, a CPA, an enrolled agent, just to make sure when we're talking about taxes and Social Security, what you've paid in and what your benefits are. And we can help you through this process. Once you are fully insured, you have three options: either early retirement, full retirement, and or delayed retirement. So let me go through those three options here. And I think this is going to answer a lot of your questions just initially. Because Cindy says, she called me up, I'm eligible. What should I do? And, Cindy, you're fortunate. I congratulate you for, um, putting in the work, the time, the energy to, pump money into your savings tanks all these years. So you have other assets, you have other retirement assets. So it's important for us to not only consider the Social Security benefit, but how it works in concert with everything. And therefore, coming more into that idea of retirement income planning and Social Security optimization versus just trying to maximize your benefit. So let's talk about it. A fully insured participant may begin receiving those benefits. As we said, Cindy, you're 62 and a half. You're eligible now at age 62. However, benefits will be less than if you were to wait until full retirement age or the FRA. Depending on how early you choose to begin receiving benefits, those reductions can be significant. So for those with a full retirement age of 67 that choose to take those benefits early at 62, you're facing a 30% reduction in benefits for life. The only increase you're going to get on those benefits, it's completely dependent on the SSA administering those COLAs or the cost of living adjustments. And those will happen annually, and I can show you down the road kind of historically what those have been. but does help you keep pace with inflation through those COLA adjustments. Now, the other question you said, I think Mario was asking, you know, how long are these benefits going to be around? I hear Social Security is going, bankrupt or insolvent. I mean, what is really going on? Well, just to clarify, full retirement has moved further out over the years as Americans have begun to live longer. So for those born between 1943 and 1954, their full retirement age is 66. But for all of us, or all of those others born either from 1954 on, they add 2 months to your FRA. Okay. For those born in 1960 or later, the FRA is 67. Okay.
It seems like we've heard somewhere along the lines that they were looking to bump up that FRA even now, right? Have you heard that as also, Todd?
Yes. So when we talk about Social Security solvency, we hear about, the media talks about it all the time. This is a left issue, a right issue, it's political. It's not. It's the dirty little 4-letter word that this is really about is math. This is a math problem, and it can be solved. It just doesn't have the political will currently to fix it. And to your point, Mario, yeah, they could make people work a little longer. They could do a lot of things. They could do means testing. We've heard all these different ideas. It's just that, politicians, they got an election coming up every, couple of years. They don't want to lose votes. They don't want to be bringing this up. But the reality is that the problem will be solved at some point. And I think for some of these younger workers, it is likely that this is going to change. I would expect that.
So if it's just math, Todd, then is there like a break even point where I can figure out, or somebody who can do math, that wouldn't be me, could do the math and figure out how long I'd have to live in order to make it worth my while to delay taking money as opposed to taking it early? Is that the
Yeah,
question?
yeah, that's a great question, Cindy. We've done your projections, and your break even is around 81. And that's pretty standard, around that 80 to 82. If you think you're going to live longer than that, I know you said your parents, I think, lived to 84, and you thought your life expectancy would exceed that. And so it does make the math, if you're looking at it that way, a pretty easy decision. And so, yeah, I mean, let's get into it. I'll give you kind of the example here, because it's powerful as far as the numbers if you wait, these delayed retirement credits. So that's the good news, is if you have to wait longer, Mario, or Social Security is going to make you wait longer, uh, that the good news is they're offering these credits for delaying your retirement beyond full retirement age. And as the FRA has been pushed further out over the years, delayed retirement credits, or those DRCs, have become more fruitful. And for the majority of people in this class, they'll receive an 8% increase on the annual benefits each year they delay receiving the benefits beyond full retirement age. 8%.
Wow.
Um,
That's substantial.
it's a compelling, I know Cindy thought I was a great financial advisor, investment advisor, and, maybe we could do better with the money. But this is guaranteed. I could never sit here and say that we could guarantee 8% increases every year you wait. And so it's a very powerful thing. And on top of it, let me go on, because I think it's really important to kind of see the whole picture. And so,
And Todd, just to clarify, Social Security is taxable, correct?
good question, Mario. Okay. It's taxable up to 85% of the Social Security that you're receiving is taxable income.
Okay.
Depending on how much money you earn, it could be 50%, it could be 0. But up to, if you have other sources of income, you could be paying on your Social Security check, whatever that number is, 85% of that income is taxable at your ordinary income rate.
Right.
If you're at the 24 or 30.
And I think I've seen that chart, and I think it's actually pretty low, right? So people who do have other assets, pensions, other incomes coming in, I'm pretty sure that it's not too hard to hit that 85% taxable trigger, if I recall. I don't remember the chart.
Exactly right. Most people do. I mean, most people cannot live on Social Security alone.
And which is really interesting because most people don't think that they're going to be taxed on that money. You know, you assume that's already been taxed and you're not going to be paying taxes. And this is kind of the whole name of our podcast, Cedar Harvest. Is the government's incentivized all of us to put money in these taxable buckets down the road, and none of us realize that in addition to whatever retirement pensions, that our Social Security is also stacking into that taxable bucket. It's intriguing because I was always under the assumption that it was not taxable.
I was also.
Yeah. Nope.
Bryce, it's hard to get your head around the idea that you paid into it, you paid taxes, that money went there to serve your benefit, and now you're being taxed again on some of that money. So a lot of people have a hard time getting their head around that. Now, you've heard in the media, and this is probably a whole separate conversation on our next podcast, about no tax on Social Security. Maybe you've heard that in the media lately.
I have heard that. Yeah. Figured it was just a talking point.
It's a marketing gimmick is what it is. It was a marketing plan. I'll just briefly say that they couldn't legislate that, but under government measures, what they did was they increased the deduction for seniors. So the deduction went up, the annual deduction, and now technically or potentially, if you have a high enough deduction, your Social Security income could become tax-free. And so let these politicians walk around and say, hey, we got no tax on Social Security. Really, that's not the case because everybody's different. And so that's why these conversations are hard to say, here's generally the thing to do, the right way or the wrong way to do this. It's really, I'm just trying to show you the rules to the game so you can make the best decisions. We can't play the game for you, but we can teach you the rules. And this way you should not be losing money unnecessarily or unknowingly. That's really my goal as a fiduciary, is to, if you're making a decision that has an outcome where you're potentially having a wealth transfer or losing money that you could have potentially had in your circle of wealth, then I'm going to point that out. And this is one area that we can do that in specifically in this case. So let me just highlight this because this is a huge difference from early distribution, Cindy, to you potentially waiting until age 70. It's a 77% increase. So let me just break that down here. You opt not to collect at age 62. You defer all the way till age 70. What does that really give you? Under these current formulas, the difference between what a fully insured individual can collect at 62 and 70 is significant. It's that 77% number. So you'll actually receive a check that's 77% larger than what you would be getting if you had claimed today.
Okay, so now I finally understand. I didn't understand when we talked about it before. When you say full retirement age, you mean 67 for my age group.
That's right.
Okay, because I think of full retirement age as 70, but it's not. It's 67. So the government is giving me 8% additional funds if I'll wait the additional 3 years to start taking my Social Security. That's why you can't beat it. Maybe. I mean, maybe you could, but you couldn't guarantee me.
Guarantee. Correct.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't really understand that before.
But of course, now we're all scratching our head like, okay, 700, and what can Todd do with it? Can he get that? Can he beat 1240 in 7 years, 8 years? Is that what the number is?
Great question, Mario.
That's really the big, that's the big question here, right? That's the big punchline that nobody can answer with a guarantee.
I can either talk about spousal benefits first and then answer that question, Mario.
Yeah, let's come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Okay, I'm
scratching.
Yes, because I have in my notes, and I have a slide to show you the math and give you the answer to that question.
Great.
And I'll end with that because it's a mic drop. Let's just say that. So let me just jump to this next screen. Just focusing on the optimization standpoint. It's particularly attractive for married couples. And for those who are married, there's a couple of items I just want to make clear before jumping in on how to maximize or optimize this for folks. The benefit requires you to be at least 62 years old and married to a worker who's eligible for retirement benefits. Of course, you must not only be a spouse of a qualified worker, but you also have to be a U.S. citizen or a legal alien. Each spouse is eligible to receive their own benefits if they've worked and it received the required 40 credits or at least 10 years. So depending on how things play out, you as a spouse may also qualify for an extra, quote, or excess amount from your spouse's benefit. Even if you don't qualify for your own benefit, you are entitled to a spousal benefit if your spouse is eligible and has filed for their own benefits. Okay, you following me?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to determine if you qualify for an excess benefit for your spouse. And Cindy, we've talked about this. We have to divide your spouse's primary insurance amount, or the PIA, which is the value of the benefit that they're entitled to receive at full retirement age, by 2. We subtract, Cindy, your PIA from this amount to determine if you'll receive anything extra. And so let's look at an example. And let me just say this first. Because for the purposes of this example, let's assume we have a husband and wife, both age 67 or FRA. But it could be the other way around. It could be her money and he could be the spouse. It doesn't have to be, it could be, either way, husband and wife or wife and husband. So let's assume that his PIA is $3,000 per month and hers is $1,000. By the way, it could be, and then determine whether or not she would be eligible to receive that excess spousal benefit. The SSA would take 50% of the higher benefit earner's PIA and compare to 100% of the other benefit earner. Any difference would be added to the other spouse's PIA as an excess spousal benefit. The other spouse would still only receive one check, but the total value of that check would be equivalent to 50% of the higher benefit earner's PIA. So it's something important to keep in mind. If you choose to take those early benefits before retirement age, before your full retirement age, the benefit and your spousal benefits will be impacted via a permanent reduction.
Is the percentage the same, Todd, that we saw before? The reduction, is it still subject to the 30%, or is it different for the spousal component?
Well, I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious if it was the same percentages. So if you're looking at the spousal benefit adjustment, is it subject to the same 30% deduction if you were to take it 62 opposed to the 67? Is it still that same 30% for that component?
That's exactly right.
It's the same math, same formula.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. The same math that we just looked at right here.
Got it. Okay.
Take out a huge deduction. Yes.
Curious. I assume to be more.
The reason we wanted to stress that is because it's, you can't change this, so, it's just, it's a permanent reduction. And also for spouses who are not fully insured, they're not out of luck. In fact, the Social Security Administration will follow the exact same process for determining what an uninsured spouse will receive in a spousal benefit. In this case, if we assume the other spouse did not have 40 credits and therefore was not entitled to a check based on their own earnings, what do you think they would receive? Any idea?
God knows with the government.
They're not entitled to the benefit, but
It's the spousal portion. Is that it?
yeah, correct. The $1,500 per month, just like the spouse who had enough credits to achieve a fully insured status.
Got it.
So put it another way, assuming the lower benefiting spouse waits until FRA to file for benefits, they will never receive less than that 50% of their spouse's PIA.
When you say total monthly income, the couple's getting $4,500 together between the two of them?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So spouse 2 is always going to get at least half of spouse 1's.
I was really surprised when you told me that I am eligible to take benefits under my ex-husband because he's 65, even though I'm not 65. But I take the decreased. I have that 30% penalty for taking it early.
Cindy, that's a great point. Most people don't know about this benefit. So let me
Right.
outline that the eligibility for spousal benefits first. And you could see here with my little checklist, but you know, this is what they consider. The Social Security refers to the divorced spouse as an independently entitled divorced spouse. Okay, one thing to consider here is an independently entitled divorced spouse. When they meet the criteria listed here, it's important to understand the meaning of entitled in that last bullet. This means that the former spouse must be old enough to be eligible to receive benefits. So to be clear, if the former spouse whom you wish to collect a spousal benefit is not at least 62, you will not be able to receive a benefit, the spousal benefit in this case, from their earnings record. It's also important to note that there's no 2-year waiting period to receive divorced spousal benefits if the former spouse has already filed for their own benefit and all other criteria are met. So, yeah, I mean, Cindy, you're eligible, you're entitled to that benefit.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're referring to here, Todd, is that if the spouse that is deceased was only 63, Cindy couldn't pull that, but because he was of the not the PIA, the whatever acronym you used, of the appropriate age, 65, she can take even at 62 that portion. Am I saying that right? But had he been 62 as well?
Yeah, as long as he's at least 62.
Okay.
You're just talking about divorce, though, right? Or did I miss the one spouse passed away?
Yeah, well, so that's because Cindy's situation is her ex-spouse is deceased. But that's a great point. I'm glad you kind of segued me into that, Officer Ty, because there's eligibility for survivor benefits, and that's what we're talking about here. So have to be married at least 10 years, divorced for 2, but except for that exclusion that I just pointed out, and the applicant at least age 60 or 50 and disabled. So, and by the way, applicant did not remarry before age 60. So there's a few things that we have to look at. Again, these are some of the intricacies of Social Security. So like with Cindy, we contact Social Security Administration office and we get the answers to these questions regarding what the divorced spouse's earnings were and some of these details and to help determine her eligibility.
Am I seeing that correctly? The applicant did not remarry before age 60. How many people get married at 58 or 59 and have no idea they're about to implode a benefit that they would have?
No idea. Yeah. If I were to call Social Security, would they walk me through all this, Todd, or is this something that I need to talk to somebody else about?
That's a good
Somebody
question. You can visit a Social Security field office. That's one way to interact with them. It's sometimes tough to contact them over the phone. Sometimes you just don't know who you're getting, and it's difficult. I think you're better off going to one of the field offices and having the documentation that you need and sitting down with somebody and getting some help. Again, that's something that we can help our clients with as well and guide them through that process.
Yeah, my experience with working with almost any government agency, they're very good at answering questions, but they're not very good at coaching proactively. Right?
Well, the reason that I thought of this question, because my mom qualified for this. She didn't remarry, but she gets my dad's survivor benefit. But it's been a pain in the ass for her to talk to people on the phone. So she's had to go in. She gets the most benefit by going in and talking to somebody at the office, the local office where she lives. So, but yeah, she qualified for the. I didn't honestly didn't know about this. That's the only reason I have a little bit of knowledge of it because she has it. She gets it from my dad.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear they were helpful for her to go in because I do regularly, in fact, I've I've gone
The phone, they weren't though. That's the thing. They weren't on the phone. She had to like go in. They weren't very helpful at all when she tried calling.
right. Oh yeah, I know. I go in. I've sat in the. You take your little number and sit in the lobby and wait for your ticket to get called, and you go sit down with somebody. And I've helped clients and gone through that process, and it's in some cases worth it. If it's um when we're talking about this much money, over a period of time, it's extremely important. And let me just kind of leave you with this, and I want to wrap this up because the reality is, to your point, most people don't know,
Yeah.
and most people do what I would consider is maybe not optimal, which is claim at age 62. 32% of people claim as early as they can. 26% between age 63 and FRA. And then here are essentially, I mean, let's be honest, these are a lot of our clients right here. These are the people who are educated, they're making a good decision, they're doing something that's in their best interest. But it takes a lot of work to get educated on this. You do need to have a subject matter expert. I work with subject matter experts in this area. We'd be happy to have one on as a guest on the podcast in the future. Well, we get into specifically the changes in the GPO and the elimination of the windfall elimination provision. And so these are things, I think you brought this up at the beginning. If you paid into Social Security, but you were getting another pension in the past, you would be eliminated from your Social Security benefit. Well, under the new tax laws, those changes have been made, and so it's been very much a benefit for those eligible workers who are now going to be receiving that Social Security benefit that in the past they didn't get.
Well, and likely, and you have to the person themselves has to trigger the benefit, right? The government's not going to say, "Hey, you now qualify. Here's your money." You have to call and, I'm assuming, opt into something. So if you don't know about it and you don't make that call, you're not going to get the benefit automatically, are you? Is that accurate?
That's right. It's like, you gotta get your Medicare benefit when you turn 65.
Have to
And
initiate it.
yeah, you have to take action. Correct, Maria.
That's another question I had, Todd. Can you get the Medicare benefit if you file early, like at 62?
You do not. You're not eligible until that benefit or for that benefit until age 65.
Okay.
So it's a great question. A lot of people are confused on the eligibility. And to your point earlier, FRA versus delayed, what ages, and it's changed over the last few years. So even if, people know a little bit about it, that can be dangerous. It's like a amateur rock climber, you know just enough to get yourself into a lot of trouble.
And the thing is, Cindy, again, your Medicare, everybody thinks when they get to Medicare, they get to 65, that all of a sudden their cost of insurance goes way down. And that's not necessarily the case for everybody, because your cost of Medicare there's that rate goes up the more taxable income you have. So the cost of Medicare is also going to go up as you're stacking more taxable income onto your tax return. So this is like a pension. It's just odd. Once you push go, it's going. You're getting that income regardless. It's showing up on your tax return, which is going to negatively impact your cost of Medicare as well. And that people get really blindsided by that.
Yeah, I that's the first I've heard of that. Do you pay the government for your Medicare or do you pay?
Part B. It's called Part B. Yep, you're paying for it. So
I did not know that.
yeah, and I'm no longer Medicare certified, but when I was, it was roughly around 145 a month on the low end. And it goes up from there. And I'm sure, Todd, you have clients that are older, they're probably pretty affluent, where they're probably paying a pretty penny for their Medicare monthly.
Well, and I think we could do a whole separate podcast on that as well.
100%. Yeah.
The health insurance side and how that actually is a factor and something you want to consider. Let me leave you with a couple of thoughts here. Because, these statistics that I just showed you, it's because we were saying, it's kind of surprising why more people don't wait. And I think the the statistics indicate that for many, our message hasn't gotten through, and they're on the brink of disaster. I mean, millions of boomers that didn't seek out the the right advice before determining what their overall retirement income planning strategy, including Social Security, should be, um, it's a big problem. And so it's interesting, I even highlighted the point, given all that's been written recently about the impact of COVID-19 and the impact of any future projections for Social Security. I would submit, in spite of everything you read, given the vast majority of people that have historically filed early, the impact of COVID-19 will have on the future of Social Security fiscal projections is limited. Walk you through this example because I want this to be the last thing you hear out of me today is the math, because I kind of wanted to show you the math problem that,
Please.
yeah, it's important if pointing out all those thinking of collecting benefits at 62, if you do and you keep working, Cindy said, well, what if I take early? But you're a business owner and you have income.
Yep.
So when I heard that, Cindy, I knew I had to go through this example with you today. Because if you keep working, the Social Security Administration is going to introduce you to something called the earnings test. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay. Under the SSA rules, anyone collecting benefits prior to full retirement age is subject to the earnings test. The earnings test requires that you forfeit $1 in benefits for every $2 earned over the allowable limit, which is $23,400 in 2025. I think you pointed that out earlier, Mario.
Actually, I think I did know that because of my mom. I think I did know this.
Yep. Yeah, the earnings test only affects those benefit recipients who have earned income between age 62 and retirement age. So let's do this example for you, Sandy. And as you can see here on the chart, anyone who's contemplating taking benefits while still working may forfeit a significant amount of income between ages 62 and 66, making the idea of taking it and saving it very challenging. Someone who takes it, even though they don't need it, but continues to work and earns just $71,400 a year between ages 62 and 65 could forfeit more than $96,000 in benefits over that time frame.
Wow. That's real money.
That's real money. So just this decision alone, Cindy, save you $100,000 of a wealth transfer that would have happened unknowingly and unnecessarily. And so without
It's hard for us to make that money up, Todd.
we say that again?
What that age?
Even you'd be hard pressed to make that up.
48. That's $2,000 a month.
And that's the thing, here as a certified financial fiduciary, and my goal is to find money that you're currently losing unnecessarily and unknowingly. And if I just point out, hey, here's $96,000 without having to go out and take any risk in the market, and maybe we could do better than 8%, but maybe we could lose money too in the market. Markets go up and down. And so it's important to do what we can guarantee for our clients and wait. I'm going to take it one step further. It doesn't stop there, but wait, there's more. If the spouse in this case were collecting spousal benefits during this time, the difference, any forfeiture requirement above and beyond what the primary insured is receiving, it will be captured from the spousal benefit, as it is benefit derived from the earnings record of the earnings test violator, they call it.
Violator.
Yeah. So if you can't get away from that earnings test. And so it could affect the spouse terribly. And so not to mention, the forfeiture required under the earnings test is satisfied by the withholding of the entire benefit checks until the forfeiture amount has been met by a reduction in monthly benefits. So for those people who need or depend on monthly cash flow in retirement, this can significantly impact their ability to meet their monthly cash flow needs. So,
Right.
So for those thinking about taking benefits, investing them, and letting the capital you accumulate between 62 and 70 compete with the guaranteed income increase SSA is offering at 70, the earnings test can significantly hinder the success of that strategy.
Yeah, you really got to have some pretty strong returns through those years to make up $100,000.
Are you ready for it? You want to know what they are?
Yeah. Bring me the math, baby. Bring it.
It's like 36%.
Wow.
Yeah, here, hold on. Let me pull it on. It's oh, I thought I had that exact number. I'm just kind of checking where I thought I saw it earlier. It's such a big number. I don't even I don't even want to show it because it's unattainable.
So, I mean, obviously you're advising to not do this for somebody like Cindy, because that's, but I imagine, I wonder how many financial advisors would say, yeah, pull it, invest that money,
Cindy's
not knowing about Social Security. I mean, you better be careful out there and have the right financial advisor who really understands Social Security, or else you're going to hurt your client.
Can I talk about your case a little bit, Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah, Cindy's a really unique case because she's a business owner. She's still working at 62. May work for a number of years. Her ex-husband, also unique, also deceased, unique. So Cindy's in the situation where, depending on how much money he earned, she could do what's called file and suspend. In other words, she could collect on her ex-deceased husband's benefit now, suspend her benefit so that it continues to grow. And then when she decides to turn on her benefit, she can then optimize or maximize her Social Security income by getting the higher number later on. In other words, she would get two benefits. And if I remember correctly, the first time we talked about Cindy, you were kind of floored. You didn't even know about this.
Yeah, it's like the best of both worlds.
And, it's nothing, it doesn't affect, your ex-spouse in any way. If he's passed away, so it certainly wouldn't affect him. But this is on the IRS. This is the government's way of providing this benefit for seniors in America. And so,
Oh,
yeah, it's really important to know the primary reasons you should seek out the guidance of somebody like me or a retirement income professional is when you're attempting to determine which Social Security retirement claiming strategy is the right one for you in your unique situation. You have to consider in 2005, the Social Security Administration implemented a policy which prohibited their employees from giving advice.
yeah.
I think Officer Tyler brought this up earlier. Even if your mom was in the Social Security office, by law, they can't give her advice. They can't provide her
Yeah. You only answer questions. Yeah.
financial planning advice.
Only.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And also consider this. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Mario?
No, I was just going to ask a question. I didn't know if there was if you had the ability to get some sort of Social Security credential, some badge that you've gone through and passed tests specific to Social Security. Is that there's a credential for that?
There's several, and I work with a team. They are the Retirement Asset Optimizer group. They develop software to do Social Security analysis. Thousands of advisors across the country use this software to do the math and
Gotcha.
plug in our clients' financial plans, their assets, so that we can see in the tanks and figure out which strategy is the best. So if we need to fill a gap early in Cindy's retirement years, we can plan for that and then turn on Social Security later to help protect her against inflation, taxes, and longevity. So that's really the kicker there. Um, when you look at a married couple between ages 62 and 70, Mario, you would not believe it, but there's several hundred possible filing options to consider. And the Social Security Administration has nearly 3,000 filing rules.
Wow.
So the difference between one option and another may be the determining factor in whether or not you run out of money in your lifetime. And I think, to your point, that's why you should probably talk to somebody who has that designation, who has that that subject matter expert who is going to be able to look at your situation uniquely and guide you through those 3,000 filing rules and the several hundred possible filing options that you could consider.
Sounds like it's like going to court without a lawyer. Like, you can do it, just not recommended.
But good luck. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I think that's fair to say. And I
It's probably alarmed on you.
yeah,
It's very alarming.
that's a lot.
This was great, Todd. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was my pleasure. This is what I do. I'm happy to do this anytime. I look forward to coming back and talking to you about under the new Secure 2.0 Act, those tax law changes and how it affects Social Security with the WEP, the elimination of the windfall elimination provision, and the GPO. So those are two things that affect public employees. So Officer Ty, a lot of your, I mean, you're a young guy, but a lot of the older cops that you work with, the law enforcement personnel that you know, are going to also want to know about these tax law changes. And then also, Cindy, you brought up earlier um, and I think Mario, you mentioned, hearing about no tax on Social Security. And that's a really big deal next year. So going into 2026, CPAs are going to be talking about it. Everyone's going to want to know about that new senior deduction on top of your standard, or if you itemize your deduction on your taxes, you're going to be eligible to take that senior deduction, potentially minimizing your tax obligation. So we're not talking about tax avoidance here. We're just talking about only paying what you have to pay, the minimum amount, the required amount, nothing more, and being as efficient as possible with your other assets in the meantime, so that we can really plan. And maybe I'll leave you with the model. I'm going to share a different screen with you real quick, because I'll leave you with this one last thought. Because here's what happens. You're going along working. You've got your lifetime capital potential tank, this huge tank on the left. It's so big because a lot of money flows through here in your lifetime. And Cindy, as I said, I commend you. You've lived at a reasonable lifestyle, and you've pumped up that extra cash flow and saved it in these two tanks for your future lifestyle. And you've got your house. Congratulations on your new home, by the way, by the lake. I'm so excited for you. But someday, when this goes away and you decide to retire, we're going to want to turn this. You see this tank right here? This is the Social Security pool at the bottom. We're going to turn this on. And now we have this new inflow, so that regardless of any of my clients, my goal is always to make sure that in retirement, you're able to maintain or improve your current lifestyle, adjusted for inflation, so that you never have to worry about running out of money before the end of your life.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for our clients. So let me just pause and see if you guys have any questions about the model or anything I talked about today.
This is a conversation in itself, Todd. This is a podcast dedicated just to this model each.
Yeah.
Well, good. That's why I wanted to kind of leave you with this, because it's something I show to every one of my clients, every one of my appointments. We always look at this, and Cindy knows. She could tell you, inside of these tanks, we see all of her accounts. We can see, which accounts are in the yellow tank that are exposed to risk. Which one have tax rate risk. This is this red sleeve over here. Future tax rates coming out of qualified plans like 401ks and IRAs. A lot of people don't consider this. And so we've planned for this. And, Cindy will tell you, you've done some great estate planning over here with your green tank. You've accumulated cash value in this tank over the years and built up protections for your family. And I know you have 3 daughters, so it was always important for you to have that death benefit in place too. If God forbid something had happened to you early, and this big tank had gone away, well, you know, all the years, 26 years I've been doing financial services, all the financial products that exist that are out there, well, the only one that I know of that can replace this with the stroke of a pen is life insurance. Life insurance will fill up this tank immediately if, God forbid, something happens to you. And so it's an important tool. I know, Mario, you've worked with Cindy on implementing these strategies, and you've done a great job in doing that. And so I commend both of you and having the foresight to make these decisions, because it really is, none of this happens by chance. Everyone's model looks the same, but it takes energy and effort to pump that money up there, and it takes a conscious decision to based on all the information you have. And I guess that's maybe the last thing I would say is, Oh my gosh, there's more information than you could imagine out there. I mean, why couldn't you just plug this into ChatGPT and have them tell you how to claim Social Security? I think you can see why you need.
I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of people are gonna do that.
Probably people that do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for them.
Good luck with that. Let me just say, ChatGPT is designed to give you an answer,
You're right. Yeah.
and I just don't know that it is qualified at this point to do that. So,
We have to give it all the right information, and I didn't even know what all the right information was that you needed. You had to get that out of me through a conversation for me to even understand. But I really appreciate your analysis because coming into this, I really thought that my best option was going to be to take my money as soon as I possibly could and give it to you to invest it. And I'm I mean, it's an eye-opening analysis that you did that showed me how much money I would have been losing and leaving on the table if I had done that. So I appreciate your educating me today.
well, you're welcome, Cindy. It's really my pleasure. I mean, this is what we do as CFFs. You know, most advisors, they just want to talk to you about this risk tank right here. Oh, you need more money in retirement. You need to save more. You need to pour more money into these tanks. But what we're trying to do is help you avoid those wealth transfers or those potential unknowing or unnecessary losses that making a poor Social Security claiming strategy decision could cost you, as we just pointed out, $100,000. So I'm glad you took the time. Thank you for doing that today. Officer Ty, your presence here is always appreciated and great questions. And thanks for sharing that about your mom. I'm happy to hear she's doing well. And yeah, now you can tell you kind of know what's going on with this.
Yeah.
And
If you have
before we,
questions, she can call me.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that she may have questions, but yeah, it was definitely something. The only reason I know about it is just because of her experience. So
And I'm going to put a little plug in here for you, Todd. Seeing this tool that you have in front of us, the Circle of Wealth tool, super powerful. I love the visual nature of it to bring a complex subject matter with so many moving parts and variables to the table. And you guys out there, there are a lot of different softwares that a lot of the financial advisors use. And I've yet to see anything that's so interactive and visual with the pipes, the inflows and outflows. And it's a hard tool to master. And I can tell, Todd, that you have spent the time and energy to master this tool so that we can convey things very well to your clients like Cindy so she visually can understand. Because most people are not math people, let's be honest. You never scare them. Spreadsheets just kind of confuse them. And this is it's a fantastic tool. So great job of
Yeah.
narrating this
And
tool.
for those of you, thanks for pointing that out, Mario. I'm like you. I like the visuals. I understand it better when I can see all of my finances in one place, in one picture. However, some of my clients are engineers. They're, in technology experts, and they want to see those spreadsheets. And just so you know, this is all driving this image. We have all those spreadsheets and Excel, we have all the math behind this. But you're right. I love the software because it does allow us to manipulate things in real time and kind of see different scenarios and compare and contrast, different decisions. So when people ask me a question, my answer is usually, I'm not sure. Let me test it. I'll put it in the model and let's explore the options and see what the best solution is. So that's what I always do as a fiduciary because I always want to validate and those recommendations that I make, I need to be able to prove it with the math on paper. And so this picture helps me to explain it to a lot of people who, yeah, you're right, Mario. They would not want to see my spreadsheets. So
People glaze over with numbers. Those who don't, those who love them, love them. But you don't, you don't. That's just the bottom line. Well, thank you very much for your time, Todd, Cindy, Officer Tide. This is great stuff. I think we all learned something from this today. And then future episodes, we'll probably get a little more, we'll deep dive into, I look forward to really driving in on some of these other Social Security concepts you're referring to, Todd. Specifically, it'd be great with, being able to, Cindy, look at your example for what you're, being an ex-government employee, having a pension. How does this marry up? Understanding that. Same thing for you, Officer Ty, the fact that you can kind of see how the world has changed pertaining to Social Security for you.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big deal, Todd. So, I mean, I could see where we're just, doing episodes that are just modern day law and changes and how has this affected Social Security specifically. So thank you for this. Was very informative, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great platform, Mario. So thanks for putting this together. As you saw with all those Americans that are obviously making maybe not the best decisions with those claiming strategies and not having this information, this podcast really helps. So, I can't talk to enough people throughout the day. I've got my clients. They're the most important thing that I do, but this is a great way for us to share this information to the broad public. And as I said to Officer Ty, if anybody needs my help, you've got my cell phone number. Call me anytime, 520-730-4414. Text me. I'll get right back to you. And we
Love
can
it.
go from there.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right.
Val. I really appreciate it.
Any other final thoughts? Anybody?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I think that was a great show. We're almost an hour in, so man, it just
Wow.
Yeah.
flew by.
Well, and that's about the typical length of my appointments. If I go over 50 minutes, I know people are starting to kind of glaze over, and the attention span is limited. So I think that's great that we did an hour, and I'm glad that we were able to break that out and do those other more detailed tax law changes in a separate episode altogether. So thanks for not